So here's the real question. How do dentists like you, who aren't willing to let insurance dictate how you will run your practice, who want to create incredibly profitable practices without sacrificing your time or sanity, how do you create the strategies to ensure your practice not only survives, but thrives in the 21st century? That's the blaring question, and Dr. Steve Schalintz is here to provide the answers. Welcome to Dental Practice Freedom Radio.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Steve Schalintz, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Dental Practice Freedom Radio. And I feel like it's been a good couple of weeks since I've recorded an episode, and been crazy busy for a lot of reasons, many of them good. In the process right now of really honing in on Dental Sales Secrets. For those of you who know, that program is all about increasing comprehensive case acceptance. And it is just taken a mind of its own and a lot of building and refining and making sure that it's the best possible program before a lot of dentists come through. Because I've been a part of programs that work really well, and I've been a part of programs that don't work as well. And so I've always made it a rule to myself to make sure that whatever I'm putting out is really good. And that's been a pillar that I live by. So I have that going on. Then I have a new program that's launching in probably about a month, 3 weeks, somewhere in that range, where DSS, Dental Sales Secrets, was all designed around sales and building a comprehensive base case acceptance process for your office. And then it kind of morphed into how to really optimize your practice for more comprehensive case acceptance. And when I realized that a lot of dentists that I've been talking to, they weren't even at a place to implement that yet. Their practices were not built to do it. And I wanted to be able to help those dentists get to that level as quick as possible. And so, the last 4 or 5 years, one of the best parts about being an entrepreneur is you learn some serious skills that can be applied across all arenas. And that led me to create a program that's all based on optimizing you as a person. And I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said, one of the reasons that I create programs is because it helps me bring it to my own practice, my own life. So one of the main reasons that I create a program is to really help me streamline my own process. So this program was an offshoot of me trying to get my life in order, because it can get in dispersal pretty fast. As an entrepreneur, if you're not careful, it can get in dispersal. And that is actually the reason that I wanted to bring up what I'm going to talk about in this podcast episode. I'm going to be using a new recording system to actually edit this podcast. I edit all my own podcasts, and I don't really spend a lot of time doing it. I throw an intro and outro in my content, and I'm done. And I started to look at what is almost like lifestyle creep, but in my coaching business and also my dental practice, I call it expense creep or software creep, especially in the coaching business. What happens is, even though you could be tracking your numbers, but you're not really paying attention to true expenses. And you never really sit down and say, okay, do I actually need that? And the last 3 weeks to a month now, I've been going over all of my finances with a fine-tooth comb. A lot of money, I'm sorry to say this, a lot of money has been leaving my practice, my coaching business, all this stuff, because of what I'm trying to do. And it kind of reared its ugly head, and I had to take a look at my finances and say, okay, what's going on here? And if I don't stop this, am I going to continue to feed into the cycle? And it's actually creating me some serious problems. And so I started to dig back into the finance books that I read and started using Profit First again. I got more ruthless with that system. And then also with You Need a Budget, which is a software and a philosophy on personal finance. So YNAB, You Need a Budget, is really, really good for personal finance. Profit First is really good for business finance, and putting YNAB with Profit First kind of creates this software mesh of just two amazing philosophies and books put together, and I'm using it. And one of the things that Profit First challenges you to do is cut like 10% of your expenses like right off the top. And so I started to look at literally where I'm spending every dollar in my coaching business, my dental practice, and my personal finances. And just last night alone, I found software that I wasn't even really using, especially in the coaching side of things, because you kind of put everything on autopilot. And I don't encourage you to cut up your credit cards. I don't encourage you to not use auto bill pay. But I do encourage you to do tracking that's not through an accountant through QuickBooks, because what it does is it forces you to analyze every transaction. So using YNAB again has allowed me to look at every transaction that comes in so I can clear them. It used to be that you have to put them in manually. That's just way too complicated to do if you have two businesses and your personal finances. Like, it's just never going to happen. On average, there's 30 to 40 transactions going through those three things almost on a daily basis. Like, you are going to get consumed doing that. But at the end of the day, I can take 10 minutes, go through every account that I have, and just go, okay, yep, got to approve these, approve these, approve these. In the last 2 weeks that I started doing this, what's very evident is like I'm spending a lot of money on stuff I didn't even know I was spending money on. And even though I was tracking expenses and where I was at, I was using QuickBooks and an accountant to do that. And they give you a forecast and you really don't break into the numbers. And just yesterday alone, I got rid of $150 of just recurring expenses that were not even just vital, but like they were completely unnecessary. They didn't need to be there on all three levels, especially coaching and personal finance. And so the reason I bring this up, you might be asking, well, I track my finances. What do I have to worry about this? There are probably expenses in your practice right now that you deemed necessary at some point, but if you really were honest with yourself and you looked, you'd say, this is completely unnecessary and doesn't do anything to impact the quality of the dentistry I do. And those are the ones you should immediately cut. And I encourage you to go do that. Literally break down your numbers. And if you haven't done that, then the first step is actually analyzing your numbers. Where are you spending your money? Because to me, the first thing you do is do that. And then the second thing you do is stop worrying about that and the focus on income. Like, there's two edges. I know some dentists that are way over on controlling expenses, and they never do anything to increase their revenue or their income. They don't generate more income. And then I've seen other ones that are always about growth, 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 growth. I need more revenue, more revenue, more revenue, more revenue. And all they do is just increase their expenses to get more revenue. So their profitability is exactly the same. And in fact, it gets harder as your revenue grows. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum, and what you really have to do is blend those. You have to start almost like I called this last month. It's almost like a stop, spend, sprint. A stop, spend, sprint. For a month, I just want to see what can I live without. Now, I'm not acting poor. I still have the mentality of abundance and ever-increasing money coming to me. But I just want to see what's possible. Like, how low could I get my expenses? And then once I figure out how low I can get my expenses, then I can start to figure out how do I generate more revenue with the low expenses. And I'll hit a number, or I'll hit some type of barrier that I'll have to spend more money to increase revenue. But I don't know where that is yet. And your practice is exactly the same way. In that you can get, Mike Michalowicz is just an amazing author. I've been studying all of his books, and he has a book called Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, and it's Parkinson's Law. He talks about Parkinson's Law, and basically, if you want a certain result, you will use whatever resources you have to achieve that result. So if you have a lot of resources, let's say monetary resources, you'll spend a lot of money to get a certain result. If you have no money at all, you will also spend no money to get the certain result. But if you really attach effort to the result and focus, you usually can get it accomplished. And he used the example of Apollo 13. And Apollo 13, one of the things that happened is that, among a myriad of things that went wrong, was that the capsule, the oxygen filter went out. So there was no way for the astronauts to get new oxygen. And so what would kill them is the carbon dioxide buildup in the shuttle itself, or the capsule. And so they basically had to take all the resources they had. They told, Houston, we have a problem. And then the command center, Houston, sat with the engineers, gave them everything they have in the capsule, and say, we need to make an oxygen filter out of this. And we have 12 hours to do it, right? Because their oxygen supply was going to be gone in like 12 hours, but they had like 2 days to get back, or whatever the time frame was. They were not going to make it. And they pulled something together on no money and things that were just available in the capsule that nobody would put together to make an oxygen filter. And they were able to do that when before it cost them millions and millions of dollars to create an oxygen filtration system for these capsules. That's Parkinson's law. Whatever resources you have, you will achieve the result that you want, but with the resources that you have available. So decrease the resources, and you have to get a little bit more ingenious, and that was the point of the book, Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. I encourage you to do the same thing in your practice. Think about ways that you can get ingenious. Now, I'm not talking about wasting your time here. I'm thinking about creativity. Thinking about things that you currently are spending money on that not only do you not need to spend money on them, you're probably better off not spending money on them. It's less bandwidth that takes up your decision-making ability. And so just to prove my point, I went to a free podcast editing software when I've been spending $23 a month on one that I barely use. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, what do I even need this for? And I've tried this other one before, but I was like, I have the money to do this. And so I'm just going to buy the upgraded version. And now I'm challenging myself and say, do I really need that? And within 2 minutes, I was able to find the answer that I'd stumbled for years using the free one. So get creative in your business, get creative in your practice, get creative in your life. Start to understand how money flows into and out of your practice. And if you haven't done that in a while, look for that expense creep or lifestyle creep or software creep that you can see and curtail that. Stop that spending, find ways to utilize that money better, find ways to get more creative, and I guarantee your practice will thrive as a result of that. So as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. If you guys are interested in learning more about this program that I'm launching, I encourage you to reach out to me directly. I'm only taking a few people through it as I build it out. I already have some dentists that are in the program and ready to go. And if that's something that interests you, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm only taking a few more dentists into that program. But thank you again for tuning in. If you guys like what you're hearing, a review or a rating would mean the world to me. It helps me drive viewership. Listenership. I think we are now close to 10,000 downloads, which is phenomenal for this little tiny podcast. And I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Dental Practice Freedom Radio with Dr. Steve Schalintz. We'll see you on the next episode.